I did not want to make this video. The DC Extended Universe just can't catch a break. Well, it did with Wonder Woman, but then it tripped pretty mightily along the way. Justice League had both the most surprising and most embarrassing opening weekend for a multi-franchise superhero film, well, ever. It's so disappointing that even the DC Cinematic subreddit, a forum known for its echo chamber mentality of ignoring negative press in favor of fanboy opinion, is now hard-pressed not to see the writing on the wall. This iteration of the DCEU will sadly always be in the shadow of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And here are the top 5 reasons why.
Show me what you got.
How's it going, guys and geeks? Welcome back to the Geek Critique Show. My name is Dakota, and today we'll be talking about the 5 biggest reasons the DCEU has shot itself in the foot in its attempts to catch up to the playing field of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's exactly where we'll start off. Patience. Or the lack thereof.
Hi, I'm Captain America, here to talk to you about one of the most valuable traits a soldier or student can have. Patience.
After Marvel patiently waited to develop characters that audiences enjoyed and didn't even know they wanted to see on screen together, they made one of the most groundbreaking blockbusters of all time with the Avengers. It broke open an opening weekend record thought unattainable, becoming the first film to rake in over $200 million domestically in one weekend. Studios from all corners of the industry looked to Marvel's formula, realizing that fans like to see their characters and settings cross over, and misguidedly concluded that the more connective tissue a multi-series franchise has, the more people feel compelled to see every outing. What these studios didn't seem to grasp was the necessary patience it took to create solo films for the characters so that you could be emotionally invested in them, so that they can build a solid foundation on which to grow upon. With Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, you essentially had a film filled with characters that weren't developed in their own right, interacting with each other in a way that very few would argue felt premature. Because it was. Way too premature. The 3 biggest heroes in the DC Comics pantheon rushed into only the 2nd film in the franchise. It leaves very little to be earned in later films. Inconsistent and underdeveloped characters, or characters that don't feel like their comic book counterparts, are another area we should dive into. From its inception, the DCEU earned a middling response from critics and fans alike, myself included. Superman is literally my favorite superhero ever. That's what I grew up with, that's what I love to read. Most of my comic books, probably hundreds of them, are Superman comic books in some form or another. And I'm sorry, but that guy in Man of Steel that they kept saying was Superman? That was an imposter who couldn't even impersonate a mild-mannered reporter correctly. Never once did I feel that this was the character I knew and loved. Henry Cavill has only finally become that character in Justice League. He's the best part of that movie. But 5 films in is too late to finally suspend my disbelief for one character. And that's just the one character. In Batman vs Superman, Batman was gruff, borderline cruel, and kinda cool. But in Justice League, he took an entirely different tone. He was funny, lighthearted, and well, he was a totally different person than the guy we met in Batman vs Superman. Even Wonder Woman was poorly served from film to film. We find that her entire backstory of hiding during Batman vs Superman is scrapped by the end of Wonder Woman. Let's not even get started on the characters of Suicide Squad.
Ride ain't over yet.
My man.
And it sucks to say, but both Aquaman and Cyborg were woefully underdeveloped, despite the potential they delivered on screen. These films, especially the Snyder-directed ones, have relied too heavily on tone and CGI to make the world feel real to its viewers. Now, I'm not entirely talking about the lack of levity in the first couple movies, but the overall color grading of these films, a staple of Zack Snyder's style alongside a lot of green screen, leaves the world feeling extremely hollow. If it all feels dark, cold, and unrealistically rendered, it's very hard for people to relate. And if people feel that the world is off, it becomes very difficult to suspend their disbelief, making it unlikely that the characters within will leave them emotionally invested. Wonder Woman was saved from this fate of its world feeling hollow because it set itself long before the drama of the modern-day DCEU in a world at war, which, sadly, audiences found more relatable and epic than anything else we've seen. This next point should come as no surprise to anyone watching this video, but bad press really isn't good press for the DCEU at this point, as the old saying would suggest. Let's single out Justice League for this particular failure, as it was the most likely to fix its faults before release. Sadly, despite being one of the most expensive films of all time, Justice League's fixes have come at a greater price to Warner Brothers than anything before it. But truly, and unfortunately, it's because of what came before it that Justice League was doomed from the very start. Justice League is the movie equivalent of putting a gold brick on top of a wavering Jenga tower. The foundation, as we've made so very clear, is just not there to support its weight. And this is heightened by the bad press the previous films have mostly received. And now I'm not calling Justice League a gold brick, but it has the weight of one, or it should anyway. Had the films prior to the Avengers all flopped, the Avengers would have crumbled miserably. It would have been scrutinized for every flaw it could have potentially boasted. But those films didn't flop.
And Hulk. Smash.
They were a strong foundation, which led to Phase 2 and now Phase 3 becoming seemingly stronger successes. Justice League is, at its core, a direct sequel to a film very few moviegoers care to see a sequel of. And its box office earnings show the futility of such an effort. This last point is probably the most important because it would have potentially avoided all of the things that we've mentioned up to this point, and that's Kevin Feige. Every cinematic universe needs a mastermind, someone in charge of quality control, someone with the patience and wherewithal to make the right films in the right order. Sure, DC has Geoff Johns in the role, but Johns has thus far proven he cannot reel in quality from their director-first approach to the universe. Feige would have fired the directors responsible for the failures before letting the film hit theaters. Joss Whedon has mentioned in the past that Marvel was a very strict company to make a film under, which is why he probably won't be coming back to the MCU. Ant-Man was originally to be directed by Scott Pilgrim's Edgar Wright, but he stepped away after the company would not bend the way he wanted it to. While these directors could have potentially made better, more unique Marvel films, if they don't fit the MCU mold that Kevin Feige has set out for, they won't be used. They won't make the cut. Having a figure in charge of continuity and direction between the executives and the directors is essential to getting this right. And it may now be too late for the DCEU to pick itself out of this slump. Justice League spent some $300 million in production and an estimated $400 million in advertising. Which is great for me because I get all these cool posters out of it. But I don't want to use them anymore. Heck, $25 million were wasted trying to remove Henry Cavill's mustache. Though it could possibly make up its earnings by the end of its worldwide run, it likely won't do any better than break even at this point. The film only made $94 million at the box office, which may not seem like a low number, but that is the very lowest a DC Extended Universe film has ever received. Actually, they've all broken at least $100 million, which should have been a given for Justice League, which boasts three of the biggest heroes of all time. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, along with new heroes like The Flash and Aquaman and Cyborg. It should have been a given that this breaks $150 million easy. And besides Logan, it's the lowest opening for a superhero movie all year. If you were to tell me last year that Thor Ragnarok was going to outperform Justice League, that Guardians 2 or Spider-Man Homecoming was going to outperform Justice League so dramatically in its opening weekend, I would have laughed. It didn't seem feasible. But now here we are. And this muddies the future of this shared universe incredibly. Aquaman is the next film in the franchise, and even if it attains solid reviews, it will likely be hit with a wave of bad press and poor sales due to its connective tissue with Justice League and Batman vs. Superman before it. Wonder Woman 2 is the only other film that will definitely be produced after this massive box office failure. And that's a shame, because these are some of the best characters in comic book history. To see them handled so poorly hurts not only the fans of those characters, but the medium as a whole. For the record, I really enjoyed Justice League. I probably would have given it a B-. It had flaws in its lack of character development, and some of that CGI was just plain early 2000s bad, but I had a fun time with the film, and I wish it were received far better than it had been. What are your thoughts on Justice League? Did you see it? Did you like it? Do us a favor and leave your comments down below. And speaking of cinematic universes, have you checked out our chronological timeline of the entire MCU? If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe and click that bell icon to be notified whenever we post a new video here on the Geek Critique Show. Thanks guys, have a good one.